It's got all the intrigue of, well, an episode of House of Cards. A reporter dating an important person on Capitol Hill. The same official that's accused of leaking to reporters. An arrest, an indictment, and, well, more to come.
Last week, the New York Times revealed that the Justice Department had seized years' worth of emails and phone records from one of its reporters, Ali Watkins, sparking outrage in the media.
My friends and former colleagues at the New York Times say that this was just an outrageous invasion of Ali Watkins' privacy.
But it's complicated. Turns out Watkins also had a 3-year relationship with former Senate intelligence aide James Wolfe, who was recently indicted for leaking information to reporters.
Prosecutors say that Wolfe falsely claimed to FBI agents in an interview in 2017 that he did not have contact with reporters.
Investigators say he had regular contact with at least 3 reporters. Both Wolfe and Watkins deny ever sending or receiving leaked data. But the Justice Department isn't buying it.
James Wolfe was the first recipient, the sole protector of all classified documents sent to the Senate Intelligence Committee.
Watkins also made a few blunders of her own, selectively disclosing to editors she had a relationship with Wolfe, and failing to tell the Times about the record seizure until last week. Also, these tweets could come back to haunt her. Senate Intel has been so frustrated in recent weeks by the constant dribble of leaks about who's testifying to them when. In other tweets, she alludes to Zoe Barnes, the House of Cards reporter sleeping with the Kevin Spacey character.
If I said Politico wanted to hire me, what would you say?
I would say that piques my interest.
In a tweet, Watkins writes, "So on a scale of 1 to ethical, how does everyone feel about pulling real Zoe Barnes for story ideas? You tell us."
So I guess my big question here is the story here this overreach, perhaps, by the government to seize Ali Watkins' records, or is it Ali Watkins? I was trying to think of another word than idiocy, but I think idiocy seems like the term to use. So
poor judgment?
Poor judgment is softer, yes,
yeah.
but not exculpatory.
Was it overreach when, under the Obama administration, they subpoenaed the phone records of an AP reporter and the phone lines of Fox News and James Risen?
Well, a lot of people thought so, right?
Yeah. So it seems to me that it's kind of part of the being painted with the same brush, similar actions, right?
I'll tell you what's overreach. What's overreach is that it was a secret subpoena. And she didn't have a chance to challenge this in court. Normally, you say, we want these records, and you can go to court and say no. And she didn't have that opportunity. It was turned right over to the government. But, of course, her relationship with James Wolfe is being used as the reason for why they didn't give her that opportunity. They say they were afraid she was going to go running right to him.
And you can do it preemptively if you identify a national security threat. Right?
Yes, exactly. Now, I have to say, as far as the other ethical issue here, all I can think of is the old line from the late New York Times editor Abe Rosenthal. I have to paraphrase it a bit, but it's like, I don't care if you're sleeping with the elephants, but not if you're covering the circus. And that's exactly what she was doing, unfortunately.
Well, any good PR hand would tell you that the first rule of public relations is no surprises. And so, from the standpoint of any one of her employers, they would have needed to know this, from the institutional standpoint and then also from the journalistic ethics standpoint. I mean, to answer your original question, Adam, I think both can be true, because she's got an ethical issue to deal with. And at the same time, this does have a chilling effect on the relationship between journalists and sources, and I think all journalists should be concerned about that.
But I do think that what it does, just to build on your point, what it does do is it exposes the kind of cozy relationship that does exist in Washington. I mean, certainly in any town, you have to go and work your sources, and you have to build relationships. And it's not to say that people are sleeping with their sources, but there is this incestuous, if you will, cycle that occurs in Washington, and people get very cozy with each other, and they spend a lot of time together. Not a lot of real friendship there. The purpose of it is to gain access, to gain information, and so this kind of exposes it. And I think for the public, when they're watching these kinds of things take place, they have a harder time sometimes believing sort of the ethical nature of what reporters are doing, because they know some of this stuff is going on behind the scenes.
I'm really glad you mentioned that. I would love to get everyone's thoughts on what the right parameters are when it comes to getting to know or cultivating sources? Because my sense is, I have not spent time in the press corps in D.C., but my sense is that there are other venues in which members of the media hang around with people who are part of the world that they are reporting on. And I'm curious about, where would you draw the line?
I'm okay with source coffees. I'm okay with dinners. I'm okay with the White House Correspondents' Dinner or the Gridiron.
Drinks?
So I'm okay with source drinks. I'm not okay with it continuing once you've left a public venue. That's my own personal where I draw the line. I'm sure that different people have different lines in the sand. To me, part of what's damning is that they both denied that information was being traded. And if you're in an actual relationship, a physical relationship with someone for 3 years, I think it might actually be 4 years, from 2013 to 2017, how do you put up that kind of firewall?
Yeah, I don't.
No, you can't put up the firewall. And I think that these relationships happen, and I don't know that you can really regulate, the kinds of the depth to which someone might go in terms of either having an affair or doing something privately with a source. What you can regulate is we have to be transparent as reporters. So, and I know, newspapers, media organizations do have rules and guidelines, and it doesn't mean that people will abide by them. But I think they need to be stated and restated often so that people understand, okay, yeah, if you're going to go and do this, come and tell us, and we'll move you off that beat, or we'll keep you off that particular story, and maybe even make it transparent to the extent that you can without all the details.
Well, and the New York Times kind of did that. She wasn't covering the Senate Intelligence Committee, but she was kind of Senate Intelligence Committee adjacent.
Yeah, it was too close, I think.
There's a sliding scale, though, and to take a step back, I think we can all agree that that's a place where you draw the line, a 3 or 4 year relationship. Even the dinner...
Get out quick.
Yeah. Even the dinner party circuit, there's something from an outsider who's not in the swamp, if you want to call it that, of Washington. There's a dinner party circuit where there's a cozy relationship between sources, and there's sort of sometimes a revolving door between who's a source and who's a journalist, and it all makes you wonder about what actually gets reported and what rises to the level of coverage.
Right. Who benefits from this? I don't think the public benefits from it. I don't think democracy benefits from it. It makes me appreciate I.F. Stone, who basically did not work sources. He worked documents, and I think that's in some ways a better way of pursuing it. Or maybe I shouldn't say everybody shouldn't do that, but it's good to see some people doing
I think most people will understand that it's fake friendships. I had sources that you could say were friends. When I left the beat, they didn't return my calls. So I think you kind of understand how the game is played. Yes, people take it to extremes, and crazy things can happen beyond that. But I think there's a certain, cadence to this game that is played in Washington.